Hopefully you will see how easy Reason makes it for you to vary drum patterns. With Reason, making variations of the original pattern is simplified since you don't have to reconstruct the original pattern each time. With each duplicate pattern, events can be altered like different kick drum hits, snare rolls, etc. We're going to make a few variations now. Let's start by changing kick drums. Click on the Redrum Channel 1 Select button, then click on Pattern A2. Press Run on the Redrum. Add medium hits on steps 12 and 15. Do the same with Pattern A3, but remove the bass drum event at step 13. With Pattern A4, add medium hits on steps 11 and 15. Now let's add a crash cymbal at the transition. Change the sample of the Redrum Channel 10 to a crash cymbal sample. Click on the Browse button and navigate to the Reason Factory sound bank. Navigate to the folder Redrum Drum Kits and open the subdirectory Drums Sorted. Locate the folder called Cymbals and open it. Then select the sample called Crash XTC5 and program a crash cymbal hit on step 1. This pattern will be used at the beginning of a drum phrase arrangement. Next, we will change the snare sample, then create a pattern with a drum roll. Click on the Browse Sample button of Redrum Channel 3 to open the sample browser. From the pull-down menu, navigate back to the folder Exclusive Drums Sorted. Double-click on the folder Snare Drums. Select the file SD XTC7. Press the Open button to load the sample into Redrum Channel 3. Select the previously duplicated pattern A6. Click on the Step button 9, then drag the cursor over the successive buttons to pattern 16. This quickly adds snare drum hit events to the pattern, thus creating the snare drum roll. When we press Run to audition the loop, you'll notice that the level settings on Redrum Channel 3 are too low. Increase the Drum 3 level knob to 101. Now we can hear the snare drum roll. We will also modify the kick drum events on this transition pattern. Click on the Select button of Redrum Channel 1, then click on the Step buttons 5, 9, and 13. This will remove the kick events. Now program a medium accent event at steps 11 and 14. Now that we have a final transition pattern created, we have all the sections needed to arrange the drum phrase arrangement. Since the Redrum patch has been modified with new samples, it's a good idea to save the customized patch. Click on the Save Patch button, and when prompted in the Save dialog window, rename the patch and save it in a convenient location. When the Redrum is created, it should be automatically cabled to a mixer input. 2 additional connections should also be made, which connect the effect sends from the Redrum to the auxiliary chain inputs on the mixer. There are 2 effects send knobs for each Redrum channel, labeled S1 and S2. These effects send knobs will route the drum channel audio to the effects send outputs of the Redrum. Since a reverb is connected to the mixer auxiliary send and return 1, then S1 will send the drum signal to the reverb. S2 will send the drum signal to the delay unit. This allows you to adjust the amount of effects specifically for each drum channel. Set the S1 on channel 2, 3, and 10 to about 60. Snares, claps, and cymbals are enhanced with a bit of reverb. This is referred to as wet. Repetitious bass drums are more effective dry without reverb. Now that we have several different patterns, we can arrange them to play in a specific order. One of the features of the sequencer is to program Redrum pattern changes, which selects different patterns at different measures in the song. First, set the loop locator points either by dragging the indicators in the sequencer window or by adjusting the parameters in the Reason transport bar. Set the left locator to measure 1 and set the right locator to measure 17. This defines the boundaries of a 16-bar loop, which is the length of the drum phrase arrangement. In the sequencer window, select the track Redrum 1, assigned to the redrum, then switch to Edit mode. The sequencer edit mode displays 3 areas, and the yellow region is used to program pattern changes. Click and drag up the divider to resize the view of the pattern lane in the sequencer. Set the editing resolution from 1/2 to bar, then click on the pencil tool, which allows you to manually write in pattern change events. The Snap To button is already enabled, so the events you add with the pencil tool will be quantized to start at the beginning of a measure, and the length will be divisible by measures. Click on the pattern lane of the sequencer, and a pattern change event for A1 is drawn in, and is depicted by a solid yellow line with a tab that says A1. A second pattern change event appears for pattern A5, which is the current pattern selected on the redrum module. Overwrite the change for pattern A5 simply by penciling A1 over it all the way to measure 20. Click and drag the handle for the sequencer zoom until we can see the boundaries for the 16 bars that we have marked by the loop locators. In the pattern change lane, there is a pull-down menu which lists the redrum patterns. Select pattern A5 from the list, then pencil in a pattern change at measure 1. This will add the pattern with the crash cymbal hit at the first bar of the drum phrase arrangement. Now select pattern A6 and pencil in a change event at measure 16. This is the transition with the snare drum roll. We can now audition the drum phrase arrangement by pressing play on the sequencer transport bar. Select pattern A2 with the modified kick drum patterns and pencil in pattern change events on the odd measures from 3 through 15. Before we finish, we can make one small change by drawing in a pattern change for A3 at measure 8. This adds a slight variation at the midpoint of the arrangement. Now we have a 16-measure drum phrase, which is comprised of different patterns programmed into the redrum. At each measure of the arrangement, the sequencer sends pattern change events to the redrum, and the redrum patterns trigger the corresponding drum samples. This 16-measure drum phrase arrangement is the foundation of the track, and we can proceed to build up the song by adding other elements to this arrangement.